What if I told you that overcoming porn addiction isn't about willpower? The truth is that it's culturally accepted for men to be addicted to porn. And the majority of men in the world are negatively impacted by porn, whether they're aware of it or not. And when you're relying on porn, you're essentially addicted to a drug. It is a drug, it affects your brain exactly like a drug, and you get addicted to it. But the good news is that you can actually retrain your brain to no longer desire porn. You can actually use sexual pleasure to do this. I know it may sound weird, but we'll get into that. And I'm going to share a very powerful and simple technique with you that will help you to overcome porn addiction. And by doing this, you can rebuild healthy dopamine and hormone levels. Sound good? Let's get into it. I'm Jonathan White. I'm here to help you master your sexual energy so you can create your ideal life. If you're enjoying the content, make sure you hit subscribe to stay up to date when I drop new videos on sexual and self-mastery. And make sure you get my free ejaculation control course through the link in the video description. First, I want to share my own experience with overcoming a porn addiction. Like most men in the world, I learned about sex through porn, and I was exposed to porn at a very young age. I think I was like 8 or 9 years old the first time I saw a porn image, and it really created some complications in my ideas of sex, in my eventual intimate relationships. But basically, I spent almost 10 years jerking off pretty much every day to porn. And I did a lot of damage to myself in that time, mentally, emotionally, physically, as far as my dopamine levels, my hormone levels. I had very low testosterone. I was underweight, scrawny. It was almost impossible for me to put on muscle. I struggled with depression, anxiety. And once I stopped watching porn, things completely changed for me. But the interesting thing was, I didn't try to quit porn. It happened naturally. When I was about 23 years old, I started studying Tantra and Taoist sexual practices. And I was learning practices that were focused on body awareness during sexual pleasure and not focused on ejaculating, but instead on building the energy and sustaining it and finishing a sexual session without ejaculating. So basically creating a new pathway to experience pleasure in the body. This dramatically changed my experience of both sex and self-pleasure, because previously, masturbation had been completely centered around visual stimulation, jumping on Pornhub, clicking on some videos, and just mindlessly jerking off to these overstimulating images. And so going deeper into my body awareness completely changed the dynamic of what I was experiencing in sexuality. It was no longer about body parts and images, but more so about sensations in my body that I was connecting to. And when I was having sex, whether by myself or with a partner, it became far superior than anything I could experience watching porn and jerking off. Because of this, I naturally just stopped watching porn. I just lost my taste for it. Like, I didn't have to force myself to do it. I just completely lost my interest in it. It was obvious that it was having a negative effect on me, and that was it. I dropped it, never went back to it. So I'm gonna share now a little bit of theory, both some more scientific information and some esoteric information that comes from my studies in Qigong, internal energy cultivation, Tantra, Chinese medicine. So the most obvious and apparent negative effect of how porn messes up your system is the fact that it stimulates a large amount of dopamine release. You're clicking on image after image, you're getting hit after hit of dopamine. It essentially desensitizes your brain. Your receptors become fried, they start to shut down. You start releasing so much dopamine that it fries your system. You often end up having less dopamine receptor sites available because the body's trying to put itself into balance. So what happens is, after a while of doing this, your body adapts to such an exaggerated level of stimulation, that level just starts to feel normal to you. And when you go back to your daily activities that are not dopamine releasing activities, your dopamine levels are often much lower. And so you feel shitty. You have brain fog. You experience depression, anxiety, you have no motivation, you have social anxiety, etc. So this is the most superficial, obvious level, but it goes much deeper than this. And to get into this, let's talk about the concept of Jing, J-I-N-G. In Chinese medicine, Jing is essentially your physical essence. And what's most relevant here is that it's essentially the raw material that you have for the body to produce hormones and neurotransmitter chemicals like serotonin, dopamine, hormones like testosterone. So there's a finite amount of these resources that you have. And for men, an ejaculation is a release of Jing. And when you're doing this too much, which most men are, then you become deficient in the resources that your body needs to have healthy hormone levels and healthy neurotransmitter chemical levels like dopamine. So this combination of visual stimulation, which is messing with your brain chemistry, and excessive imbalanced sexual activity, jerking off and ejaculating all over the place regularly, this depletes your Jing levels. And this process isn't instant. Otherwise, the first time you masturbated and ejaculated, you probably wouldn't want to do it again. But it's a sneaky process where over time, you're losing more and more Jing. And because I feel like both the amount of stress in the modern world, the amount of overstimulation from social media, and the availability of high definition porn, that men are depleting their Jing faster than ever. So essentially, when you have deficient Jing, you have low hormone levels, you have low testosterone, you probably have high prolactin levels, high estrogen, making you prone to mood swings, to irritability, laziness, weight gain, lack of motivation, lack of confidence. And you will also be deficient in healthy levels of brain chemicals such as serotonin, dopamine, melatonin. So now let's talk about the process that fixes this. And that is both regulating your ejaculation or retaining your semen, basically no longer ejaculating frequently. And this alone is helpful, but there's more to it than this if you want to really rewire this pattern. Because if you just stop watching porn, stop engaging in sexual activity, yeah, your system can rebuild. But the problem is that you still tend to have a very impulsive drive towards sexuality, whereas the slightest sexual trigger can drive you to want to jerk off and ejaculate because that's your association of what sexual stimulation should result in. The other thing is changing actually how you experience orgasm. So I've talked about this in other videos, but just a quick review. There's basically two pathways in the body that you experience sexual pleasure and orgasm. A stress-based pathway of your sympathetic nervous system and a relaxation-based pathway of your parasympathetic nervous system. What happens is that sexual signals from your sexual organs, signals from sexual pleasure, they trigger hormone releases in your glands and in your brain. So too much in the realm of sharp peak orgasm ejaculatory experience and you deplete your brain chemistry, you deplete your dopamine, you deplete your testosterone. But when you're experiencing more natural sexual stimulation, meaning not a bunch of like sexual images on a screen, just you with your partner or you in your body, not excessively fantasizing, just being there, being present, this can create a more positive feedback loop in your sexual hormonal neurotransmitter circuit, we could say. The most simple thing is that sympathetic-based sexual pleasure, which is marked by tension, really riding the edge, really just trying to go for the orgasm, just trying to get off. This fries your brain chemistry, creates a stress response. And it's not to say you can never ejaculate, but if that's your main mode of sexual activity, meaning you're just overstimulated, you're super tense, you're just driving towards the ejaculatory orgasm as much as you can, that's what really fries your brain chemistry and your hormones. When you have parasympathetic dominant sexual pleasure, which means basically you're more relaxed. You're physically relaxed. You're not tensing up your pelvic floor. You're not hovering right at the edge of ejaculation. Your whole body and system is relaxed and calm. This actually can create a positive feedback loop in your neurotransmitter endocrine system. It can actually recharge your brain chemistry and your sexual hormones, and your vitality increases. So that may have made sense to some of you. Some of you may be like, what the hell is this guy talking about? Let me break it down even more. Okay. Basically, when your sexual experience always results in ejaculation and you're doing that frequently, this keeps you trapped in essentially dumping out your energy reserves, dumping out your Jing, your vitality every time you have sex or masturbate. So it's a depletion. And if you're doing that, once a week, once every couple weeks, not a big deal, but you're still not really benefiting from it, right? Now, when you're not ejaculating frequently, but you are experiencing sexual stimulation, and you're also using the technique I'm about to share with you, which actually redirects the energy to your brain, this creates this positive feedback loop in your pineal gland, where you essentially release more youthful hormones. You do have dopamine release, but it's a healthy level of dopamine release. It's not an excessive overstimulated dopamine release that leads to a crash. There is a difference here. Not every dopamine release is a bad thing. Sex is a very natural thing. And when you work with it this way, it actually really refines and amplifies the benefits that you can get from it. And where I'm really going with this is that shifting into a paradigm of experiencing non-ejaculatory orgasm, experiencing full body waves of pleasure, but not in the tense, sympathetic dominant, sharp ejaculatory release type of experience, but in a full body, relaxed, grounded, waves of pleasure that's very manageable state. When that is your primary experience of sexual pleasure, when you switch to this model, you have a new paradigm of sexual experience, which becomes far superior. And when you learn to experience this, then very often you won't want to go back to the frantic ups and downs of jerking off to porn. Because with porn, yeah, there's an instant gratification. It feels fantastic in the moment, but you feel like shit the rest of the day. So once you incorporate this new model of not having all this external stimulation, just being in your body, being with your natural sexuality, and intensifying the pleasure in a different way, you feel good 24/7. Yeah, initially it's not as obvious and sharp as an ejaculatory orgasm, but you can sustain this type of pleasure for a very long period of time. And you don't have a crash in your brain chemistry and hormones at the end. So to set up the technique I'm going to share with you, in Taoism and in Chinese medicine, there's a concept of returning the Jing upwards to nourish the brain. The idea with this being that your moving this subtle life force, this subtle energy. You're moving that from your endocrine glands below, your testicles, up to the brain. There's a strong connection between your sexual energy, your kidney energy, which is your base vitality of your body, your testicles, and your brain. And so, as I mentioned before, when your Jing becomes depleted, your brain becomes depleted. Your brain neurotransmitters become depleted. So when you stop ejaculating frequently, you start to allow your Jing to build back up. And then when you use this technique to bring it into your brain, it enhances the function of your brain in your pineal gland, which is a major control system for your hormones. So it creates this positive feedback loop to where your energy is building, your vitality is building, and your body is producing more hormones, more neurotransmitters. So your mood starts to stabilize, your energy starts to stabilize, your circadian rhythm can improve, and basically you become more vital. How does that sound? So essentially all you're going to be doing with this technique is as you breathe, you're going to sweep your awareness from your testicles up the spine and to the brain. And you're also going to bring it back down the body to create this loop. This is known as the microcosmic orbit. So what you do not want to do with this practice, some common mistakes, you don't want to use excessive force or mental strain, like really tense mental awareness. You want to be relaxed with the mind. Relaxed, because if you use a lot of force and tension, there's a tendency for the energy to get stuck in your head. You get headaches, you get insomnia, you feel overstimulated. This is what some people call Kundalini psychosis. And it's not as severe as it sounds. It's just like you just have too much mental stimulation. Most people have this anyway from looking at a screen all day. So just something to be aware of. Be gentle mentally, just very effortless with it. This is not a visualization per se. Like you can use some visualization, but visualization alone tends to just keep you stuck in your head without actually engaging with your nervous system and your energy body. So think of actual kinesthetic awareness. You're really bringing your mind into the body as you use this. And the other thing is I do not recommend using contractions of the pelvic floor. This is extremely commonly taught with this type of practice. I believe this is an error, a mistranslation of the practice, because tension creates a constriction in your nervous system and your subtle energy channels. Tension in the pelvic floor tends to ingrain in a stress response to sexual stimulation. So you don't need it. It's not necessary. You can bring sexual energy up your spine without doing a Kegel. Okay, so what you're going to do is you can massage your testicles a little bit, just give them a little squeeze, a little rub with your fingers, just to solidify your awareness of them. And just absorb your mind into the testicles. It's like imagine your mind is a liquid and it's filling the testicles like a sponge, like water dropping into a piece of paper and absorbing. And you just start to breathe. Feel like you're breathing into your testicles, holding your awareness into there, just breathing into them, bringing the breath low in the abdomen, breathing into your pelvic floor. And then as you inhale, it's almost as if your spine is a tube. And as you inhale, you start to draw your mind from the testicles up the spine, up to the brain. So you simply sweep your mind in that pathway. And as you exhale, just relax. And again, it's like water absorbing into a sponge. It's like that sexual energy absorbs into your brain. You inhale, drop from the testicles up to the brain. Exhale, relax. The energy absorbs into the brain. Now, this is one way you can do it. The second way you can do it is the same thing on the inhale. Sweep the mind up the spine from the testicles up to the brain. And then as you exhale, it's like a waterfall of awareness down the front of your body. It's like ice cube melts in your head and the water drips down. That's your awareness dripping down the front of your body, back down to the sexual center. As you inhale up the back, exhale, melt your awareness down the front of the body. One more time, inhaling up the back. Exhale your awareness down the front of the body. Okay, that is a practice called testicle breathing. And it's a very simple sexual circulation practice. You want to spend, I would recommend spending at least 5 to 10 minutes doing it. Doing it sitting down is great. You can also do it laying down or standing up. But when you do that regularly, it's going to start revitalizing your brain with your sexual energy. And I want to share right now an experience that someone else had doing these types of practices. Fred here posted a comment just explaining how the sexual kung fu practices helped him overcome his porn addictions. And so just solidifying my point of it's not just about, okay, I have to stop doing this thing, because whenever you just try to remove something from your life, it creates an empty void. So when you're instead focusing on how can I better interact with my sexual function, my sexuality, and you actually start to put that energy into something, what this practice does is it transmute that energy. You can turn it into creative energy. So do this practice and then work on some art. Go to the gym and work out. go have a conversation with someone, and it will start to put that energy into other things, so it won't be so raw and impulsive and lustful. And I want to finish this video just talking about a bit more of an advanced concept. You can actually apply this during sex, this sexual circulation. Now you can experiment with just using the technique as I taught you. Do that during sex, whether it's self-pleasure or sex with a partner. That's going to start, again, really charging up the brain with this sexual energy. And when you stay relaxed, you stay calm during sex, you can have non-ejaculatory sexual experiences. And this is, again, what over time, as you really refine this practice, is going to be far superior to any Pornhub jerk-off session. And it's going to completely redefine your experience of sexuality and even orgasm. So I know I dropped a lot in this video, a lot of information, and some of you may be asking like, okay, this is great, but like, how do I actually go all the way with this? I want to share some resources with you. I definitely recommend taking my free ejaculation control course. That's basically level 1 of the sexual kung fu system. I also have a YouTube video of a guided testicle breathing practice. That's the same technique that I shared with you in this video, and you can use that video to follow along with as a daily practice. I also have a free upcoming training where I'm going to be going in depth into what it requires to really rewire your mind and body to experience non-ejaculatory orgasms, have complete ejaculation control, and experience an absolute revolution in your sexual experience. So check that out in the description of this video. If you enjoyed the video, please give us a like and share with one of your bros who you know has some porn issues and needs to sort this thing out. So I'm really here to empower you guys and help you to turn your sexual energy from being something that's frustrating, impulsive, and driving you into addiction, to liberate it, refine it, to be a driving force to your highest evolution, your spiritual, mental, emotional, physical mastery. That's what I'm all about, guys. With that, have a great day, my friends.